Right. So there were there were a couple scenes with. Found out later with the commentary track that that these were real people telling real stories that they experienced, and they kind of come in. And those are two of my favorite scenes in the movie, just because, especially there's this one character, I forget the actress who played her name, but she was an actress before this, but then she ended up being an actress after this movie. But she explains this she was on the street walking, and there's these people that could, hurt her or rape her or something, and she was walking, and then, then there's these bums, and she felt like she could relate with these bums. And then she went to this party, and she wasn't able to relate with these people. She felt more like she could relate with the other people, and she was very depressed, and, I think some addictions had to come into play here, and the severe depression and whatnot after that, and then there was another character that was talking about his cat, and he was kind of talking about his cat, and if his cat died, he was probably just going to take sleeping pills and kill himself. And also the other character, she was talking about how she took some sleeping pills and she almost overdosed, and then she woke up in the hospital and she wished she was dead. She wished the suicide, or not suicide. It wasn't suicide. She kind of accidentally did it because the pain was so unbearable. So them two are very linked, and it kind of just comes in, those two scenes, and you're like, what? But those are two scenes that I find that they stick out, and the characters, they're like, it's like an alternate universe kind of thing, because the movie's not about them, but it's about characters that could have been saying what they were saying.
Yeah, except those characters always confuse me, because, why are they there?
There's no explanation to why they were there, why they had their scenes. But the girl was in the place with the dude. The dude was there, so that character was there, and it was just a story that he was hearing. And then the cat guy, I guess he was there too, but the dude kind of stick out. But still, I definitely really like those scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to when the director has all this footage, and he's like, okay, I want to have this in here now instead of what we were trying to film. That's one of the things he was saying. So one of the things was he had a Jack Nicholson and Tuesday Weld scene, but it just didn't go so well. So he filmed the guy with the cat. So that was one of the reasons. But
how do you know, as director, which scenes to include and which not, and which scenes not to include? It's like,
very good point. This guy, Henry, he in the interview that he had with Peter Bogdanovich, or however you say his name, he was saying that, Peter has, everything laid out. He knows exactly what he needs to do. Well, really, because, if you think about it, Last Picture Show is a novel, so he had it already laid out for him. But with Henry, he could go anywhere with this. He could cut it any way he liked. He could film whatever he wanted to. So he just, how he put it, he was just an emotional journey through. Right, he had the script, and then once he films it, is filming it, and then once he goes back and edit it all together, that's his completion of the journey. But it does sound like Terrence Malick, from what I've heard about him. I haven't really seen any of his movies, but kind of films, and then, he writes maybe, films, and then goes back and makes his edits down his sculpture type of thing.
So, the ending of A Safe Place.
Yeah, the ending. Should we talk about the ending? What happens at the end? The end. We'll talk about the ending. Spoiler if you really want to. It's been out for 42 years maybe, but
yeah.
It's not that much of a spoiler because it's open to interpretation, and really it was about it was in her memory. So you really, see the movie. But if we're going to talk about the ending now, which is open for interpretation. What do you think happened?
I think she just couldn't handle adulthood and committed suicide.
That's what I hear a lot of people come to the conclusion, that she jumped off that roof. But actually, she could have flown away. You don't think she flew away? She was talking about flying when she was younger, but...
But what about the bathtub scene?
Is that metaphorically?
What about the bathtub scene?
What about the bathtub scene? So she was in the bathtub, but then she was younger in the bathtub? And what do you think? Did she take some sleeping pills before then? She can
Quite possibly, because when you take
is that another suicide attempt that we didn't hear about?
When you take sleeping pills, you have hallucinations.
You know what?
What if?
Yeah, it could have been. What if that girl that took those sleeping pills at one conversation was actually the character, but just kind of different?
Yeah.
Because she was different throughout this. Maybe she imagined herself as somebody else, and she took those sleeping pills.
She probably took them in her childhood, and that's why she flew. I don't know, a lot of children take
it could have been it. Maybe she was taking something, and then she hallucinated that she flew, and then it always stuck with her because she thought she flew. Or maybe she climbed the tree, and it was like, whoa, I thought I flew up here, but I was actually climbing. I just couldn't feel anything. I was just flying up this here and got the parrot, came back down. My brother saw me and everything. That's a good question.
It was interesting, though, how she sat in the bathtub and she just kind of turned into her childhood self.
Yeah.
Of course, taking a bath is really strongly associated with being a child.
Yeah.
And of course, I didn't take many showers as a child. I don't know about you, but it's like, if she ended her life, she could just... I don't know. She wouldn't grow older, and she'd... I don't know. It's a little confusing for me.
Yeah. And after the credits roll, and after, Philip comes up and sees that Tuesday isn't there anymore. Not their names in the movie, but the names I'm going to give them right now because they're the real names. Those actors. Then after that, zooming out, and then, she ends up at the jukebox again, and it's like, oh, was that only taking place inside of her mind? Was it just a memory? Was it just kind of what happened? Maybe she was with I don't remember Philip's name, the character, but him. If maybe she just left him. Maybe she left him for being by herself, or Jack, or just being a free person.
Yeah, and then something else I was thinking about. Do you think Susan, Noah, whatever, do you think she might have had some sort of mental illness? I don't know. I was thinking.
Well, that could be. This reminded you of Sylvia Plath, didn't it?
Yeah, it did remind me of Sylvia, just mainly because of the whole committing suicide idea and how Sylvia just really couldn't cope with growing up.
Yeah, very much. And we didn't even mention J.D. Salinger in Catcher in the Rye, and she hasn't read it, but
yeah, I haven't.
I was thinking about the Catcher in the Rye, and there's a lot of merry-go-rounds in this movie. There's a few, and when I was watching the commentary, Henry mentioned how much of an influence Salinger was, and The Catcher in the Rye, and that just blew my mind because that's what I was thinking. I mean, I should have realized that, but I didn't know. And then he said it, and that was also about, not wanting to grow up and all these phonies. All these phonies that are, I guess people who have, are just living like everybody else.
Yeah, and suddenly I don't feel so alone. I used to feel like, am I the only one who doesn't want to grow up? But now I've seen all these movies and TV shows.
No, there's just about everyone, and I think some people are forced to grow up before they choose to. Especially anybody who has a child at a young age. They're forced to grow up before they choose to, most likely.
Yeah, but you can argue that they forced themselves to grow up by
That's true.
having sex.
Yes, and there's a lot of other factors that come into play as well. But I think that's the biggest thing. If we think about Eraserhead, the Eraserhead character, he was a father. He didn't necessarily want to be a father at that point. He loved, but I love Mary. Is it Mary? I think it's Mary and Henry, right? Anyways, whatever the names were, he found out he was a father, and there's something definitely wrong with the baby. Maybe it was just, David Lynch's inside world and his surreal, nightmarish thoughts about his new kid that he was with in Philadelphia in a bad part of the city. I'm getting too wrapped up in that story. But thinking about that, he was going through some dark stuff there too. But yeah, so he was growing up in ways that were haunting him, nightmarishly. And artistically, he made that movie.
We should make a video with that.
That's for another time.
Yeah.
Most of the movies we mentioned, good ones to do a video about.
Mm-hmm.
Lots to talk about, lots of talking points, lots of topics. That's what it's about. Especially these movies that nobody's seen, and we're just like, whoa, we got that umbilical cord all to this whole connection to all this other stuff to talk about from this one movie. There's a lot there. It's like it's a good example of a piece of art. That reminds me of it's something that I've seen before. It reminds me of sadness. It reminds me of these times when I was really young. I didn't know what was happening, and then I changed, and I didn't know where I was going in my life. Sometimes paintings can do that, and sometimes, a lot more times, movies can do that, and songs and books. Anything that has any value. Or no value, but the things that have stuff in it. Some depth. Something you bury your teeth into.
Oh, and another movie that really reminded me of a safe place was Amélie. That French film we've probably all heard about by now. I don't know, maybe you haven't, but definitely one to check out. Just because Amélie is another character who really doesn't want to grow up, and there's actually a father figure in the Glass Man in that movie that kind of reminded me of the magician.
I think The Last Picture Show will be another one we'll talk about. She hasn't seen it yet. I've definitely seen it. I read the book too. So that'll be another one we can discuss. But it won't have as much... It was definitely more clear and clean cut than this one. This is definitely, just structure-wise, it was just a different movie.
Yeah, I feel like a safe place being unstructured makes it so that there are a ton of talking points. If a movie's more structured, it's like,
no, well, that's what happened. That's what happened. Films that are open to interpretation. Now, those are great to talk about. So I think that's about enough for now. That was a safe place. If you haven't seen it, you should find it. I don't know what it's been released on. I know we have it in the BBS Criterion Collection box set, which is great. And The Last Picture Show is included in that, and Easy Rider, and 5 Easy Pieces, The King of Marvin Gardens, and Dry Piece Head, and Head with the monkeys. So if you want to check that out and do that, try to find it somewhere else, a safe place. Try to find that somewhere and see it and see what you think. A lot of people probably don't like it, but I would definitely, the people who do like it, they understand something about it. But it is kind of, it is a journey through somebody's head type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's about it.
Bye.
Bye.